What if I told you that a rocket built by a private company can carry the weight of a fully loaded Boeing 737 passenger jet into space? Not a government, not NASA, a private company. And they did it for the first time in 2018 with a cherry red Tesla Roadster strapped inside as the payload, just because they could. That alone should stop you in your tracks. The Falcon Heavy. Let's talk about what this machine actually is, because most people have no idea how insane the engineering behind it truly is. Here's where it gets controversial, and pay close attention. For decades, we were told that only governments had the resources and the genius to build rockets at this scale. Billions in taxpayer money, decades of development. And then SpaceX walked in and flipped the entire narrative upside down. The Falcon Heavy completed its first successful test launch on February 6, 2018, from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center, the very same pad that sent Apollo 11 to the moon. That is not a coincidence. That is a statement. Now let's talk raw numbers, because this is where your brain starts to short-circuit. The Falcon Heavy stands 70 meters tall. That's roughly the height of a 23-story building just sitting on a launch pad. It generates approximately 5 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. 5 million pounds. To put that into perspective, that's roughly equivalent to the combined thrust of 18 747 aircraft at full power. Simultaneously, at the same moment, all pushing one rocket upward. It can carry up to 63,800 kilograms, about 63.8 metric tons, to low Earth orbit. To geostationary transfer orbit, which is significantly higher and harder to reach, it can still carry around 26,700 kilograms. And for trans-Mars injection, literally sending something toward Mars, it can push about 16,800 kilograms. These are not estimated figures. These are SpaceX published performance specifications that have been independently verified. But here's what no textbook will tell you up front. What makes Falcon Heavy genuinely revolutionary is not just the power. It's the economics. Traditional heavy-lift rockets are expendable. You build them, you launch them, they're gone. The Falcon Heavy uses 3 Falcon 9 rocket cores strapped together, and 2 of those side boosters are designed to land themselves back on Earth and be reused. We have seen this happen in real time. Synchronized landings. 2 boosters returning simultaneously to landing zones 1 and 2 at Cape Canaveral, touching down within a fraction of a second of each other. If you've never watched that footage, stop everything and find it right now. It looks like science fiction. It is completely real. This reusability drops the cost per launch dramatically. A Falcon Heavy launch is listed at approximately $97 to $150 million, depending on the configuration. Sounds expensive until you compare it to NASA's Space Launch System, the SLS, which reportedly costs over $4 billion per launch. Let that number breathe. $4 billion versus roughly $100 million. And the Falcon Heavy carries competitive payload. That gap in cost is not a small engineering detail. That is a civilizational shift in how humanity accesses space. Now let me challenge something most people believe. People assume the most powerful rocket ever built is the Falcon Heavy. It's not, and that distinction matters. The Saturn V, which launched the Apollo missions between 1967 and 1973, still holds the record for the most powerful rocket ever successfully flown, producing about 7.6 million pounds of thrust. The Falcon Heavy produces roughly 5 million. But Saturn V is retired. It no longer exists. So the correct title for Falcon Heavy is the most powerful operational rocket currently flying. And that word operational is everything. It is actually working, launching real missions, right now, today. SpaceX has continued to evolve the platform. Recent Falcon Heavy missions have included national security payloads for the U.S. Space Force, commercial satellite deployments, and NASA's Psyche mission launched in October 2023, a spacecraft sent to study a metal-rich asteroid orbiting between Mars and Jupiter. The asteroid, also called Psyche, is estimated to contain iron and nickel worth, and astrophysicists have floated this number, potentially quadrillions of dollars in raw material. One rocket, one mission, potentially the most valuable scientific payload ever launched. Here's the pattern interrupt you weren't expecting. All of this, the power, the reusability, the cost disruption, the Mars-bound ambitions, is being executed not by a country, but by a corporation that was founded in 2002. SpaceX was founded with the stated goal of making life multiplanetary. 22 years later, they are launching national security satellites, interplanetary science missions, and actively developing Starship, a fully reusable rocket that, when operational, is designed to generate nearly 17 million pounds of thrust, making it 3 times more powerful than the Falcon Heavy itself. We are living through the single most transformative era in spaceflight history, and most people are scrolling past it completely unaware. The Falcon Heavy is not just a rocket. It is proof that the cost barrier of space has been broken. It is proof that private innovation can outperform institutional inertia. And it is a doorway to the moon, to Mars, to asteroids, and to a version of the future that was considered fantasy 20 years ago. Follow this page right now because we break down the biggest stories in science and technology in ways that actually make sense. No jargon, no filler, just the truth about where humanity is headed and how fast we're getting there. Now here's what I want you to think about and answer in the comments below. If private companies like SpaceX are already launching interplanetary missions and landing rockets autonomously, do you think governments still have a meaningful role in space exploration, or has that era quietly ended without anyone officially announcing it?